come back to policing
Yes.
and forensics and procedure and stuff
Yes.
like you did in The Skeleton's Knee. We're back to that in the Ragman's memory.
People find that fascinating, Barbara. You look at the new detectives, you look at the Learning Channel, you look at the Discovery Channel, in TV show after TV show after TV show, the forensics is what make, Lisa,
It's the only
Patty
excuse for Patricia Cornwell.
Patty Cornwell's books are very popular because of that. People love that. They find it absolutely fascinating, and there's no reason why they shouldn't. It is intriguing.
Oh, absolutely so. I agree. But I also think it's interesting. You know, you have the dark route in which you've got, you know, people on the road, on the move, and going on, and then you come back and you do your much more localized, much more policing kind of a book. And then came Bellows Falls, which I loved, and which is a very good policing book, but it actually moves about again.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
you've gone up to Bellows Falls, and in fact, you have other communities involved.
Yes.
And I thought it was just a brilliant conception. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it, so I don't want to go into it. But it's I thought it was completely fascinating the way, you know, the reader is just, you leak in this stuff, and the reader eventually realizes that you've got this kind of network of things going on in various communities. So it's a community book, but it's not just a Brattleboro book.
No.
And then, for God's sake, you go off in The Disposable Man and you write this kind of international terrorist thriller, you know, and Joe's off to Washington, and there's all this stuff going on, and, you know, bang, it's like a spy novel.
Septuagenarian CIA agents. Well, I discovered that Vermont is a great retirement place for the old CIA warriors, Cold Warriors. They're living in those hills by the dozen. It's amazing. Oh, no, it's amazing. So I thought, wouldn't it be amusing to have one of these guys, long after he's hung up his CIA hat, running an inn, and his past comes up to haunt him. You know, I just thought that would be more fun than I could wave a stick at.
It was good. It was a book that got sort of mixed reviews because I'm not sure everybody knew what it was.
I think people were a little thrown off. This is the mixed problem, if you will, with doing a series as I do a series. I'm never comfortable with a sure thing. A lot of people say, oh, I love The Skeleton's Knee. Well, all right, just write The Skeleton's Knee again and again and again. But that, to me, misses the whole point of the creative process, the whole point of risking, of sharing that excitement of will we make it, won't we make it, with the reader. This is a conspiratorial effort, after all. You don't write a story, you share a story. You trust the intelligence and the imagination of your reader. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in the business. I mean, let's be honest, when you look at one of these pages, it's a white page with black print. If you don't have both intelligence and imagination, you're never going to be able to read that sucker. You go to a movie theater, it's all there. You even know when to cry because the violins begin to, you know, to stimulate that. But with a book, it's all your own making. A writer's job has got to be to trust that in their reader and to embark in an adventure together. So every book I set out to write, I try to do it differently. I try to take risks. I try to do something I've never done before. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. What's interesting to me is that your favorite book is not his favorite book or her favorite book. Everybody has a different favorite book in the series. To me, that's a success story.
Well, it is, and it depends on what, you know, a story will speak differently to me than it will to somebody else.
Precisely.
When I refer to this as a body of work, I think within that, I'm allowing for the fact that I may not love every body part. You know, maybe you have ugly feet with a bunion.
Exactly.
And you don't, you know, I don't have to love every book in order to admire the entire thing.
Right.
And I think that most intelligent readers of a series would rather that you took the variations than you just wrote one, you know, rubber stamp book after another. It isn't necessarily the road to fame and fortune in the sense that the more dependable books, you know, the Jessica Fletcher kinds of whatever, tend to build up a fast and audience. And unfortunately, the larger the audience, the more potential you have for a bestseller. You know, the simpler the book and the more standardized it is. But that's not what you're writing for.
No, I've understood that. I know what I'm doing, and I have to admit I've made a conscious decision to pursue the road I'm going on, even though you're quite right. Experts have come in, they've told me exactly how to make $1 million. But I'm in this for myself.
Sure.
You got to write for yourself. First, you're spending 12 months of every year, year after year after year, in company with these characters and in communication with all these readers, you can't fake that. You can't manipulate. You shouldn't. Let's put it that way. Sure, you can, but you shouldn't.
Yeah, you're not money powered. Some people are. There are people who go into books, in order to make a killing.
Sure.
And when you see some of the remarkable book deals, which are just like Hollywood, agent broker deals, everybody thinks, oh, well, if I really wanted to make a lot of money, I'd write a bestseller.
Right.
But that's not why most people, in fact, go into literature, go into writing books, and that's not what we're all about. Certainly, I'd much rather be dealing with the intelligent reader and the intelligent author. When you think about it, it's a lonely process. Writing is a lonely process.
Oh, yeah.
Reading you have to do by yourself, and really the only two people in the room essentially are the reader and the author. When we get the finished product, and while you're writing it, you are presumably writing it for that mythical reader. We're running out of time, so can we skip up quickly to past Occam's Razor, The Marble Mask? You decide to go back and do a Canadian thing, and this time you've got a biker gang and some other things, plus World War II. You've got a lot of interesting stuff in this book.
Well, I was brought up in Europe. I came to Europe shortly after World War II concluded. I saw the bullet-scarred walls. I saw many young men and women scarred by the process. World War II has always been a fascination to me. I was trained as a historian. History means a lot to me. In The Marble Mask, I look back a lot. And if you want, in a way, there's touches of Ross MacDonald at work. So I start out with a frozen body on top of a mountain which thaws every year, I might point out. And nevertheless, it's been determined by the medical examiner that this frozen body has been frozen for 50 years.
Thus, it probably wasn't just on the mountain because it would have thawed and
bingo. So if you're a cop, you immediately think, okay, so why is it there? How did it get there? And why did whoever who had it on ice now make it reappear? There are all sorts of interesting things tied into more than just who's this guy.
Oh, absolutely. And you get to, strand Joe on the mountain, in the ice cave and put him in peril and so forth. It also takes you to Stowe, which is an interesting...
It takes me to Stowe. It takes me to Sherbrooke. So you have a Canadian city and a very prominent Vermont town, both muscular in their own ways, both completely different. One is a working class Canadian town, and the other is a money-driven resort town. Really, that's the only reason it exists, is because of skiing and summer activities and all this tourist stuff. And a lot of money here, not a whole lot of money to the north, and this historical interaction because of the border. The border looms all the time. That open border with no protection other than a few electronic, listening devices, which is a fascination for me.
Well, and it should be, especially since you're living in that environment. But this is also the first case that for this newly created Vermont Bureau of Investigation, what you've done, since we're running out of time and I can say this really fast, is that you have created for Joe a statewide policing position, so that he is now able to be part of this Vermont Bureau of Investigation and thus be sent all about the state. And this is a very dramatic case. It's up in Stowe. As you say, there's a lot of money on the table. There's, all these interesting questions about why the body. There's the Canadian connection. It's really a great case for this rather mobile supra-policing thing. You also spend a lot of time in this book dealing with the political issues of the police department in the sense of how are local policing communities going to deal with this statewide agency. And there's a lot of resentment, and there's a lot going on.
Issues of turf and politics,
And they're really sort of the same issues of turf and politics, I think, that must beset the FBI and police groups.
Absolutely right. That's in fact why it's described as the FBI in barn boots.
That's right. And it's called the VBI. What a surprise
the VBI,
there. Yes,
surprise, yes.
Well, I think Joe and company are wonderful. Gail's doing her thing up in, is it Montpelier?
Montpelier, as a lawyer,
And I can hardly wait to see where you're going next. I have one other quick question for you, which we never got back to. Were you actually born in the back seat of the car?
No, I wasn't. I was born on that farm that I discussed.
Okay, so that was figurative.
I was figurative because 1 year after being born, I hit the road and I never stopped.
Well, I didn't want to leave anybody hanging with that question. So,
yes.
Well, this hour has just raced by, but it's been such a pleasure, Archer. I always love talking to you through your books, but even more important, it's fun to see you face to face.
It's been my pleasure.